Hi everybody, I'm Luke Hector from the Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, please remember you can thumb up the video, you can sign up to the Patreon, you can subscribe to the channel, but more importantly, you can leave a comment to talk about the games that I have on this list. We'll get on with the list in just a second, but first, quick word from the sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk. KIENDA stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
So we're back with some top 10s, and this is starting a chain of lists that have been suggested by my Patreon. So every now and again, from a certain tier upwards, I give a poll of optional top 10 lists to my Patrons and ask them to vote on which ones they want to see. They can even suggest their own ideas in case I've not thought of any, and to be honest, this is one of those cases. This is the top 10 games where nobody wants to play with me.
Oh wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
You can have these games that you really like and you bring them to a club night and you try to get people interested, or somebody comes round, you think, oh, you like this game, come on, try this game, this is really cool, but unfortunately it's a difficult sell, or players just don't seem to want to gravitate towards a particular theme or a particular mechanic, or maybe it's intimidating, maybe it just looks like garbage, like aesthetically, and it puts them off. There's a multitude of different reasons it can be, but these are essentially 10 games where, now not necessarily my 10 favourite games in that kind of ranking, it's more how often do I come across the issue where people don't want to play this with me, and what are the reasons?
Nobody wants to play with me.
So my number 10 is a quirky little card game that, to be honest, I tend to play this on Board Game Arena more than I play in real life because nobody wants to play it with me in real life. I've got deluxe expansions for it, which I've played one of. I haven't even played some of them because, again, I can only think of one person who outwardly comes out and says, oh, can we play Innovation? Innovation is a fantastic card game. Now, granted, I don't want to play this with 3 or 4 players, and that kind of hurts it because 3 or 4 players just makes it take too long and make it too chaotic. But one-on-one Innovation is one of my favorite card game experiences, and on Board Game Arena, it's great fun. In fact, during the first stages of lockdown for COVID, I remember going on to Board Game Arena and playing Innovation about 50 times during lockdown. It was just something I could just whip up nice and quick, play against a complete random. In fact, I remember playing against one French girl, I think, who sort of randomly just turned up and found me in several games. It's like, oh, cool, you know, I'll play with anybody. And I really do enjoy this game. What puts people off though? Well, firstly, the whole quirky nature of splaying cards and it being very abstract, but mainly it just looks like garbage. I'm sorry, but you know, I have the 3rd edition Asmodee version, and granted it is the new and updated version, which is the one I want to keep. But man, sometimes I do wish I kept the 2nd edition yellow version, because that one at least looked nicer on the table aesthetically, and it still had the Echoes of the Past expansion, which to be honest is the only expansion I tend to ever play with. So I may have to seek that one out and maybe grab that one and maybe get rid of this 3rd edition one, I don't know. But the 3rd edition is clean, it's a clean one, so it's like easy to tell what's what. But yeah, when you take one look at this game, it's like, it's a bit not a looker. But honestly, it's a great game. Please, somebody play it with me.
How about no?
My number 9 is a game you've very rarely heard me even talk about at all on any of these top 10s, or even in most lists in general actually. But this is a cool little game that I didn't expect to like. It's very similar to Ticket to Ride. It's kind of like a next step up because it introduces a pick up and deliver element as well, and that is Spike, over here on the shelf. This one is a little bit of a hard sell though, because partially like Innovation, it does look kind of like garbage. I mean, the artwork is very basic, the tracks that you lay down, your little trains, yes, it's cool to have a little train that moves along at its pace, but yeah, they do look kind of like toy pieces you sort of nicked out of your kid's Brio set. I don't know, they do look very chintzy and they're a little bit on the fiddly side. On top of that, I have to tell them that it's basically a light train game akin to Ticket to Ride, where you do a little bit of pick up and deliver, and most people that are into train games want to play the big, grandiose train games, which are mostly the crap ones.
How dare you! Open his head!
I can't bring them down to the level of Spike, but then it's difficult to bring people who aren't into train games into Spike, despite the fact that I have to reassure them that I'm not a train game fan. Just occasionally, you know, one game does the right thing. You know, Ticket to Ride doesn't really count as a train game. Whistle Stop, another one which almost made the list. This is what that was in my teens. But, you know, the Whistle Stop, I can at least tell them that, oh yeah, you go and make your own tracks and go loop the loop round places like Tesoro style, and that gets people interested. Spike, though, I have to tell them it's pick up and deliver with a train. It's not the easiest one to sell and go, no really, it's a nice, cool, little, easy game with some cool tactical choices and, you know, a way to upgrade your train and pick up and deliver at the right time because the market prices fluctuate. You know, it's some cool stuff in there, and it doesn't bog down in crazy, like, things like loans and, like, punish people indirectly and stuff like that. You know, you can make mistakes, but it's not like it takes you out of the game like that. But yeah, it's a tricky sell. I mean, it doesn't really have the name to sell it. You know, R&R games aren't really a publisher that people know about or really sort of get behind, you know, from new gamers' perspective. So it's like, come on, let's play it. But nah, Spike's been a bit of a hard sell, but I ain't getting rid of it because I do think it's a quirky little game.
Whippy!
My number 8 is a Fantasy Flight game. This, and you'd think, come on, Fantasy Flight, how hard can it be to get people to play those sort of games with you? Well, this one is a little bit of a hard sell because it kind of fits a middle ground between what people are interested in when it comes to the theme and how thematic it is. It's Civilization: A New Dawn, and I really enjoyed this game. I think it's great. I wish there was a proper solo mode for it that worked with the expansion, because I don't think the one that Fantasy Flight put out works with the expansion. It really does need to. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it does. But this is a really cool Civilization game. It is abstracted to a point though. It's definitely not quite as thematic as some other bigger, grandiose Civilization games, and certainly not, say, as thematic as perhaps the original 2010 version, which is still on my shelf in the other room. I just haven't tried to get that myself to the table in a while, so that doesn't really count for this list. But when people want a Civilization game, they tend to want something a bit more thematic, so they don't quite get that feeling when I explain what A New Dawn's about. But then they also don't necessarily want to play a game that's like, oh, yeah, well, they're worried about complexity or how long would this take and that. And of course, there's a bit of rules overhead to go with. So again, it's just that little bit of a hard sell when you combine all those things together. Selling the 2010 version would work better because the heavy gamers I know would jump into something that's pretty heavy like that one, but they would also get that Sid Meier's flavor out of it. As much as this one is effectively based on the Sid Meier's formula, it's loosely based on the Sid Meier's formula. It's not quite the same, but the action row, which is literally what Ark Nova has. If you like Ark Nova, you will like Civilization: A New Dawn for its action row because that's where it first originated. The whole idea of, right, I'm gonna move these cards up and it's like, oh, I want to do technology, but it's only at level 3. Can I move some armies around or maybe do some trading maybe and just shift that up? Yeah, let's just shift that one up and move technology up a bit further. And then now technology's at level 4. You know what, I'm gonna do technology now. Whoop! And like typewriter style, it comes back, and I love that mechanic. I want it in more games. I mean, Ark Nova, case in point. But yeah, it's a tricky sell, especially as it doesn't help that I have to go through 2 rule books in order to learn this stupid game. It's like, Fantasy Flight, could you have not have printed out an updated rulebook that encompassed the expansion changes? Because the expansion is great, but it does completely rewrite 2 aspects of the base game. And it's great that it does. But you try having to go 1 rulebook, 2 rulebook, 1 rulebook, 2 rulebook.
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
And this isn't just learn to play and rules reference, no, this is a normal rulebook and an expansion rulebook. Civilization: New Dawn badly needs a single, updated, comprehensive, like, expansion-covered rulebook. If anybody's done like their own written version, I know, maybe Esoteric Order of Games or something, then I'd be glad to find it and probably nick it. But yeah, it just, those little things get in the way, but it's such a good game. Trust me.
That's very comforting, but I'm afraid you'll just have to wait.
I hate waiting.
For my number 7, the problem here is theme, or albeit lack of. There is no theme in this game whatsoever. And when it's a space game, it really should have some theme in it. But this one has 0 theme in it at all. It is a complete point salad. And again, point salad puts off a few people because they want to have a little bit of theme in their games perhaps, or they're more interested in something that's a little bit different than just simply, oh, I do something and get points. But give Pulsar 2849 a chance. And again, I suppose the cover doesn't help. The cover of the box isn't particularly appealing, and the name is stupid. I mean, I get the name Pulsar, but why the 2849 bit at the end? I mean, that's just stupid naming. Nobody cares that it's 2849. The year has no relevance. It's pointless. It's a stupid tagline. I've ranted about this before in the past, but it's just doesn't really have that look from the box to sell it. Then I've got to tell everybody that it's a bone dry point salad, and oh, okay, maybe I should not use the words bone dry, but you know, trying to make the words dice point salad sound appealing is a tricky business. But Pulsar 2849 is still a fun game, and I never thought I would say that when I looked at it the first time, because I thought, oh my god, non-thematic point salads, this is going to be something I'm not going to like. And then I tried it, and I fell in love with it instantly. It was so smooth, so silky smooth. You know, you've got your 2 actions, maybe a bonus action in the round. Everywhere that you could go with dice was specific to the die value. None of this at least than or more than or equal to or less. You know, all that garbage. It's just, this place needs a 4. Put a 4 on it, otherwise you can't do anything. You've got little modifier tokens you can spend for it, but other than that, it's what die value do you have. The selection of it in the first place, like how you get your 2 dice, is really cool because you've got to mess up your turn order rankings and your engineering cubes. Again, it's a hard sell for that reason, but one thing that this game nails is variety. Loads of different goals, loads of different technologies that you can have and different combinations. Loads of different strategies for winning. You know, are you going to go spin a bunch of pulsars all over the place and get points there each round? Or are you going to do some really cool stuff with the technologies? You're going to level up your HQ board and get points from there? Are you going to explore the galaxy and flip over all the planets? Maybe do spacewalks, whatever it is. The one where you've got to go across colored nodes and get points that way. Get the transmitters. There's so much variety and so many options in this game, and that's the kind of thing I enjoy. I like to be able to pick up the game and go, right, what do I fancy doing this time around? And that really gets me into it. This was like one of the biggest exceptions to the rule I can think of, but trying to get people to play it is a hard sell, and sadly, no solo mode in this one. Not that every game needs a solo mode, but wouldn't hurt to have one for this game.
This is why Superman works alone.
My number 6 is a hard sell for the theme that it is, and granted, I can think of some people in the world who would probably be like, oh yeah, definitely I'll play this game, it sounds interesting. But they're more into historical games. Most people I know aren't, or at least not from a proper, like, actual historical period. They might like old Renaissance Italy themes, which is pretty much like the norm for a lot of, like, say, Simone Luciani's games, or whatever Cranio Creations wants to do next. But I'm talking more about an actual historical event. This is Founding Fathers. It's still in my collection. Has not been played in a while though, because trying to sell the game that is basically we are drafting up the American, what was it, the Declaration of Independence, doesn't exactly get people swarming to my game. And it's not aesthetically the best looking game either. It looks fairly bland, lots of browns everywhere, you know, like Gloomhaven in that respect. But it just like, it doesn't look like striking on the table. But I really enjoy this game. It basically is the quintessential multi-use card game. You're essentially drafting up the stages of the independence, and depending on what, like, you know, you've selected as your goals and that, you want the independents to be drafted up in certain ways. But in each round, as it's being drafted up, you're playing your cards to sway the votes in a particular way. Like, do you want this to be accepted or not accepted? Do you want the stuff going on in, I can't remember what it's called, the chamber room or something like that? Do you want that to go your way? Are you trying to get points there? But then each card also has its own effect. You play it for its personality, and it has some other way of scoring, perhaps. Scores are tight, and it's constant tug of war with everybody else in the group. It's, you know, you play down like your New York card and you're trying to sway the vote this way, and then somebody gets in your way and Massachusetts suddenly wants to vote the other way. It's like, oi, sod off Massachusetts. New York knows what we're doing. Right, I need more. Mississippi, can you join us for a bit? You know, it does generate a lot of good fun banter, and I know nothing about the Declaration of Independence history. Honestly, when I play this game, I'm pretty much inventing my own kind of Looney Tunes-esque style Declaration of Independence setting. You know, I'm pretty much hamming it up like crazy, but there's some cool tactical choices. I love the fact that you've got this hand of cards. It's not a huge hand, and you're thinking, oh, I really need to sway that vote that way, but I like the ability as well. That is pretty juicy. always gets me into these games. I love multi-use cards. This one works well with it. It's not even that complicated a game, but yeah, just selling a game about making up the Declaration of Independence doesn't exactly draw a crowd. So for number 5, we are going by sheer intimidation. I bring out this box and people are like, what on earth is this? And in some cases, you know, in other games like Dwellings of Eldervale and Rising Sun and that, there's usually been some people who have wanted to play those games, usually because it's got some like cool fantastical element that can go with it. This is a pretty sizable box though for what's in it, and when I tell people it's essentially an upgrade to Mystic Vale, it's not the easiest to sell them on it. They kind of just feel like, whoa, what is all this? That is Edge of Darkness, a very niche game from AEG. It is like the heavy worker placement / card crafting game from John DeClaire that uses the same mechanic that Mystic Vale had, where you have your fixed deck, but then you create these awesome cards by sliding little plastic sleeve things into them, and it allows you to create really cool combos and have a good variety in the game. Now, I love Mystic Vale, and I also enjoyed sort of Dead Reckoning, although I did have some problems with its extensive length and its somewhat chaotic randomness that it had. But generally I kind of enjoyed Dead Reckoning. Edge of Darkness I love. I love this game. It's got a really good solo mode as well, but this great concept that you have a kind of river flow of cards, and as they go through, you always get advancements. Start of your turn, you always get an advancement. You pick any of like 10, 12 different locations that are all different every game, and there's like 20 something locations that you can pick from, and that's just the base set, let alone when you throw in the Sand Desert expansion and the Frost expansion, which I haven't even had yet on Kickstarter, and now they've got the new Emissaries one, Emissaries of the Veil expansion that I kickstarted. Why did I kickstart it? I have no idea, because it's hard enough to get this game played, but it's still, I wanted the content. But what happens is that the cards go along this middle row, and so you shove an advancement into one of them, and then you're able to acquire cards to use from that row, as well as any that you've got saved from your board from a previous turn. But the idea is that you can have allegiances with different cards. You can slot your kind of like banner symbol, and if other players use those cards, they have to pay you in order to use them. And you think, well, okay, I'm going to create this card, and I'm going to slot that one into there. Oh, that's a really good card now. Yeah, the problem is, everybody else knows this as well. So when it gets to their turns and it pops up out of the deck into the river, they think they want it instead. And it's like, no, I want that card. I want to be able to move those agents there and do this. What am I supposed to do if you nick it? So you've got to draw this fine line between getting the card yourself, maybe allying with it in case it's a really good card, and just the fact that you might not see the card if you make it too good and too tempting for other players. Such a cool concept. Add to that the giant unnecessary cube tower, which has the enemies that they do. The reverse side of all the advancements are enemies, and well, depending what cards you use, you drop cubes in the tower, and then depending where they come out, they attack different players. You need to have defense in order to not lose victory points. It's a cool concept, and it does have that cool little tension, but when I'm showing this to people, I have to show them a crate the size of Gloomhaven. I have to show them this giant tower that I put 3 cards on and drop a bunch of cubes in.
Compensating.
And then you've got all these different locations and card advancements. It scares a few people away just by sheer weight and what looks like a complex game. And it's not the simplest game in the world, but it certainly does make your brain think. But I absolutely love this game. But I will be the first person to say it is 100% niche. I just wish it wasn't quite so niche.
I don't get it.
For my number 4, we're going not necessarily for, well, in fact, we're going pretty much the opposite of Edge of Darkness now. We're going for a smaller game. Not for the small, you know, normal box game. We're going for a light game, a nice simple game, a pleasant, charming game with a nice little theme. And it's like, oh yeah, this sounds good, yeah. And it's just about gateway level, you know, I can teach it. It's got quirky, it's colourful, it's well produced. All right, cool, yeah. What's it called? Dream Home.
Right.
Yeah, Dream Home, the game from Rebel. Really cool, light game about building your dream home. I mean, the clue is in the title. You've got your big house board, you have the row of column of little cards that you can use, and you've got tools that you can acquire, different workers, but mainly you're getting the room. So I want the living room, and I want it here in this bit of the house. I need to get something from my garage, I need to build the foundation so I can build on the top floor. Well, I'm going to need a bedroom there. If I want this to be a functional house, I need a bathroom on both floors, I need a kitchen. Can't get any kitchen cards, someone keeps nicking it. And it's just a cool, light, fluffy game, and you just get into that theme of building up your dream home. The problem is, I have to say the title, Dream Home, and that instantly scares people away, because they think it's some weird kiddie game, or some, like, stupidly light game, and I don't even like those sort of games. Anytime my mate, who runs dice, and anytime he tries to, like, say, oh, don't worry, we're just playing Happy Salmon, or Exploding Kittens, or something with other people, I want to strangle him. Because I hate those games with a passion. Those are the sort of kiddie, weird games that I don't like. Dream Home is, it's got a cutesy theme, but it's not a kid's game. It's still a family weight game, and it has, tactical choices that you make, and you will curse at other players for nicking the cards you want. It's just fluffy, light, you get into the theme, you have a laugh, and it's nice and pleasant, even with the expansion. It adds a couple of extra elements, but yeah, Dream Home. Not the easiest title to sell. My number 3 has a problem of having a reputation when it comes to people who know about games, but also looking a little bit intimidating for those who haven't heard of this game, particularly when I try to explain what it is and they look at the cover with the artwork, and that is Inish. Inish is still on my shelf, but I don't know how much longer I can keep it on the shelf, because the problem is that as much as I really like this game, this area control game where you're moving your Celts and that over different islands, and you're trying to area control aspects, but you're also playing these cards, these tarot sized cards, and you play them, you sort of draft them around, and there's a set number of them, so they do rinse repeat, but every time you get drafted a card, you're like, alright, I'll hang on to that. And then you have to pick 2 cards, but you might decide, well, you know what, that card I chose first, I might not fancy that anymore now that I've seen these cards, so maybe I'll let that one go and I'll keep these 2 cards. And then you got to do it again for free, and I think you have 4 by the time it's all done. It's cool drafting mechanics, cool action abilities on cards, but the problem is this game has a reputation. It's not the easiest one to grok when you're playing it, in terms of how to do well. Somebody who knows what they're doing with this game is likely to cream you if you're not careful. And this aspect does put off people who know about the game, because they're probably only going to play it once and they're not going to get to play it repeatedly, which a game like this really does need you to do. On top of that, anybody who's never heard of the game will probably look at the box and the pieces in it and think, oh, I've got to draft these different ability cards, oh, that could get a little bit complex. And so they generally don't pick it out of my bag whenever I've brought it to a club, even though I've got the expansion in it, and I do like this game. It is really cool, but I need to find people who want to play it regularly, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that. Playing it with randoms all the time is not really the way that Inish should be played, but I do like it. So I'm really umming and ahhing about whether this one stays in my collection or not. Every time I think, right, I'm going to sell Inish, I can't. It's like the Wicked Witch trying to get Dorothy's slippers or something. It's like I go anywhere near the box, it's like, and I can't do anything about it. So I don't know what I should do with this game, but yeah. This one, I can't remember the last time I got it played. I'm probably going to have to refresh my memory of the rules again. But I want people to play it with me, and I just wish they would. Give this game a chance. It is better than you think.
I don't know what it is, but I want to try it.
So my number 2 is a big game. It is complex. It is definitely not one for new players, even though I want to play it, so I'm going to have to get new players in. But it's a tough one because, firstly, it's a Mind Clash game. Mind Clash games by their very nature are complicated, so that puts off a swathe of people who don't want that much complexity. But this is still my second favourite Mind Clash game that they've put out, even though it's probably nowhere near the top for some, and that is Cerebria: The Inside World. This has a couple of other things that hurt its ability to get to the table though. The fact that it's a team versus team game, it's 2v2 ideally. Yes, you can play 1v1, and with the expansion you can technically do all against all 1-1-1, but it is best played 2v2. And 2v2 means that you're going to have somebody who knows what they're doing in the game, and possibly 2, maybe even 3 other players who don't know what they're doing in the game. That already gives the team that's got the one person who knows what they're doing a bit of an advantage here. So anytime I'm playing it with somebody who does know what they're doing, I always put us on opposite teams. That's the way you've got to do it. But I have to show them, right, this is a game that is basically like Inside Out if you turned it into a Euro game. Okay, I love Inside Out, the Pixar movie. Not that other people have seen it, sadly, and not as many people love it as much as I do. But then, on top of that, right, complex game. Right, okay, you have your character emotion there, and then they look at this smorgasbord of iconography for all the upgrades they can do. Oh, by the way, here's all the emotions that you can have. Oh, these little cards with cool little abilities. Whew, that is a bit. Right, fine, we'll slow down a bit. Oh, by the way, here's all the advanced emotions you can potentially get as well. Oh, for crying out loud! It puts a lot of people off just by sheer complexity, which all Mind Clash games are complex, all the Lacerda games are complex, but it does mean that there is a bit of a barrier to entry for some people to play it, and then I've got to add on the whole 2v2 aspect, which just adds a whole new layer of difficulty to getting it played. But it is really, really good. Sadly, the solo mode just wasn't quite up to scratch in it. I mean, it's not bad, but it doesn't quite match the whole 2v2 aspect. Just having that team, the person you can confer with, even though the other team can sort of hear what you're doing, it's like, what are we going to do? We're going to control that area? Well, they're trying to do this, and they're trying to build that tower. Well, what are we going to do about it? And it just engages a good sort of banter between all the players. I really enjoy this game, but man, I mean, as much as it's my second favourite Mind Clash game, it is easily the hardest one to sell by a long shot. And now my number 1. I have mentioned this several times on this channel, especially recently. I wanted to play it at ManaCon, coming up this week as I record this video. And nobody wanted to sign up for the game, because they probably never heard of it. But also, I have to tell them this is a 3-hour negotiation game. 3 hours will put off a few people. The word negotiation will put off quite a lot of people. And just the fact that nobody's heard of New Angeles puts them off even more. But give this game a chance, people. New Angeles is a great game. It is a solid Netrunner themed negotiation game where everybody plays a corporation. One of those Netrunner corporations from that fantastic LCG that I used to play. Not anymore because of power creep and cost, but still really love that game. And the idea is that the city is going to pop. There's riots, there's power outages, there's medical issues, there's security issues, there's also the major social uprising and stuff, because nobody likes the androids working for them, and it's all this stuff is happening. As Corps, you are trying to get the city under control. You have a hidden rival though that the other players don't know which is your rival, and you're trying to overtake them in score by the end of the game, and you can have multiple winners as a result. But what you do each round is that a certain player, the active player, will put down an action card to say, right, this action card is going to solve this problem, and I reckon we should chip in and do this one. The problem is that they may not necessarily be helping other players by doing this, but they don't know that they're not helping other players by doing this because everybody's got their own agenda. On top of this, there is a special asset card that is revealed that gives you powerful effects, and whoever wins the offer, the current debate, gets that asset card. So people start forgetting about the fact that the city's going to pot and just wanting those cool asset cards. But you put in the offer, other players can then potentially put in a counter offer, and then it's negotiation between all the court players in order to see which of those action cards we're going to use. It's like, look, I am telling you we need to sort out this security issue down here, because if any more rioters go into that area, they're going to go out of play and it's going to add to our unrest. And then the other players say, well, no, look, seriously, disease is the main issue here, okay? These places are falling to that horrible stomach bug. We need to get this sorted right now. Everybody gets into their role. It brings out the Netrunner theme brilliantly. It's always engaged. There is no downtime. You're always engaged in what's going on. Even if you're not actually part of the offer and you're abstaining, you're still interested in what's happening. It's not even the most complex of rules either. When you read the rulebooks, you realize it's not as complex as you might think. The problem is, 3-hour negotiation game. Not an easy sell. Netrunner, not the easiest sell in the world, especially if you've not played Netrunner. And most people who have played Netrunner play Netrunner, not New Angeles, so it doesn't help. This game came out, didn't get a huge amount of buzz, didn't get much press by Fantasy Flight, because Fantasy Flight don't know how to advertise their own games properly unless they're Descent based. You know, basically, if it has models and can sell 1 million expansions, Fantasy Flight would advertise it like the plague. But if it's a standalone game, Fantasy Flight just seem to sort of brush it aside and never really talk about it again. That's something I seem to notice. But honestly, I can't get it played. I mean, some people who I know who have played it have enjoyed it, but I'm trying to get new people to jump into it at a convention, and it's hard to sell it because people have never heard of the game, so they can't just look at it on a sign-up sheet and go, well, I'm going to play that then. And then even when I explain it to them, they might think, oh, I don't know if I'm good at negotiating, because there's a lot of gamers out there that are, you know, fairly introverted or fairly quiet, you know, and don't really gel with the whole idea of getting into heated negotiations, because this game can get quite heated. Not diplomacy levels of heated, but still, you know, you are at each other's throats trying to get your deals going. You have to sort of take it a little bit lighter than that. But yeah, tricky sell. But I ain't getting rid of it, because I still really enjoy it. The next time I get it played, it's going to be fun. Guarantee it. So there you have it. Top 10 games that no one wants to play with me, despite the fact that I want to play them. Other ones I mentioned, I already mentioned Feudum and Fog of Love, but I don't own those games. I mentioned Whistle Stop in passing earlier. Again, that one's a little bit tricky to sell because aesthetically it's not the best, and Whistle Stop as a title, and it's trains and stocks. But it's more about set collection than anything else, and the whole Tesoro route mechanic. And that one, people sort of jump in once I explain in more detail, but until I give them the detail, they're a little bit hesitant. Catan was even a contender, actually, because so many people think it's so cool to hate on Catan now, so trying to get people to want to play Catan, and with expansions included, is a trickier sell. Thankfully, I do have some people I can do that with, but again, I tend to be one of the ones who enjoys Catan more out of people I know. What else was there? There was Pursuit of Happiness, because I had to describe it as Game of Life, the Euro edition, and people sort of go, huh? They kind of question what I mean by that. It's hard to explain what Pursuit of Happiness is, but man, when they play it, they enjoy it, and it's definitely worth playing. Trust me on that. Cannot wait for the next expansion and big box. And finally, XCOM. XCOM, the timed game with the app. Great app integration that really takes that XCOM theme and brings it out. Really enjoy this game, and I've got some friends who, if I am in the same place as them, will gladly play XCOM. Like, they really like it. But timed phases, ooh, that puts off quite a few people when they know that they've got to concentrate at speed and they're not entirely certain what they're doing, and it's quite a frantic co-op game. Really good co-op game, but has a fair bit of dice rolling, a bit of randomness which puts few people off, and the time phase is the other aspect. And not to mention that if I'm the one teaching it, I pretty much have to be the central officer because, well, somebody needs to control that app and know what it's talking about, so it kind of restricts what role I can play, even though I much prefer to play the scientist because I'm really good with those like tactical cards and I love building up all the tech. But yeah, still a solid game in its own right. So yeah, I'll be interested to know what you have in the comments. You know, what games do you really enjoy that you just can't get others to play? But mainly I need to know the reasons why. Is it, like, I've mentioned a few already. Is it the aesthetics look bad? Is it intimidating, like big box, really complex? Is it just got a very niche group that it needs to be played with? Like, you can't play it with new players, it must be the same group. I mean, I can certainly imagine that a game like Root or Merchant's Cove or the new Crescent Moon or whatever it was called, yeah, Crescent Moon, you know, I can imagine that those are pretty hard to get to play because of the nature of the beast, which is the fact that everybody plays a completely different asymmetric game, and so it's a nightmare to teach. It is why I don't tend to take much cop in those games and why I don't own any of those games, because I refuse to have a game where I've got to teach 5 separate games in advance. No, no, no. But yes, I can imagine that those are going to be pretty high on the list for some people. So yeah, I'd be interested to know what you have to say. Let me know in the comments. So that's it for me on this episode of the Broken Meeple. I'm Luke Hector, and remember, if you like what you see, please consider thumbing up the video and subscribing to the channel. It helps me to know that you appreciate the content. Also, don't forget to perhaps check out the Patreon campaign. It means there's so much to me to get any kind of financial support to keep this channel running, to get the review copies that publishers won't necessarily send me, and to put out the content that you want to see. I appreciate all the support you can give. Until next time though, you can check out more content on the channel, including the 2 live collaboration top 10s I did recently. The top 10 games that we've cooled down on with Greg from Solo Playthroughs, and of course the top 10 6-player games I did with Mark Monk of Ninja Geek Games. More collaborations to follow in time, but these 2 are my most recent. Take care, and remember, as always, regardless if somebody doesn't want to play the game with you, it's still at the end of the day only a game, so you can always do something else. Take care and good night.